Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Wolters World, and we're in Vienna, Austria, in front of the Schloss Belvedere, or the Belvedere Palace. If you're a big Gustav Klimt fan, his painting, The Kiss, or Der Kuss, is inside. Fantastic thing. So we're traveling here through Europe, and what I thought I'd give you guys is kind of the differences between Europe and the US, but in a very general sense, because every country in Europe is different. It's not all the same, but there's some general differences I think we should go through. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is language. A lot of people don't want to come to Europe because they're scared, well, I don't speak German, or I don't speak Czech, or I don't speak whatever the hell they speak in Malta. You should know, in Europe, young people, everyone is learning English in school, pretty much. So young people will speak English. Also, in the tourism industry, everybody will speak English because that's the de facto language in Europe. So even if you're Czech or Polish, that's going to be your base language, or Spanish, the base foreign language will be that. Now, having said that, it's very important that wherever you go, you actually do speak a little bit of that language. So we do have some videos, 10 words you should know in German, 10 phrases you should know in French or Spanish, and you should really know those before you go. So when you get here, even if all you're doing is saying gracias, which is thank you in Spanish, or danke, which is thank you in German, it'll go a long way. Now, when you go to the US, basically it's English, English, or English, and maybe some people speak some Spanish, so it's very, very little foreign language there, so you do have to know English when you go there, otherwise you're going to have a big problem. Now, the second thing, if you look at the kind of money they use, now the US, we have dollars, there's the $100 bill, $50 bill, 20, 10, $5 and $1 bill, and sometimes you even see a $2 bill, and then coins that are completely worthless. Now, when you come to Europe, there's different currencies. Most of the countries you're going to visit do use the euro, which comes in various forms, and their coins are actually worth something. Okay, pretty much all throughout Europe, no matter what the currency is, the coins actually are like worth $1 or $2 or $3 or something like that. So don't just throw your coins away. Realize that some of them might be worth something. Now, when you're going to go, I'll put a list of all the countries that use the euro as of, I don't know, it's 2014 or whatever. And then you have other places like England or the United Kingdom, they use the pound, okay, there. And then, in the Czech Republic, they use the crown. Sweden, they use the crown. There's different currencies everywhere, so I'll put a list of who uses what, so you know what to do. Now, when you take out money here in Europe, or exchange money, when you're coming here, your best exchange rates you're going to get if you use your debit card from your bank back home at an ATM. That's where you're going to get your best rates usually. If you want to exchange cash, do not go to the private exchange places or people that are trying to trade you money on the street. You should go to a real bank and exchange it there for the best rates. Also know you're not going to get counterfeit bills or any problems like that, okay? And also, when we look at money, now in the US you can use your credit card for everything. In Europe, cash is king, okay? It is very important that you have cash on you, because not all restaurants will take a credit card. Some of them might only take a debit card that has a chip in it, which aren't very popular in the US yet. So just because you have a credit card doesn't mean you can use it. So make sure you realize that cash is king here, okay? So the last thing I want to talk about here in Vienna is tipping in Europe. Now, in the US, it's 15 to 20% at sit-down restaurants, okay? And same thing with your taxi drivers, things like that. In Europe, tipping is very different. Here in Austria, it's 10%, okay? 10% here. Germany, 5 to 10% if the service was good. The Germans say they tip 10%. They don't. They might give 5%. Don't listen to them all the time. If you go to England, it's about 10%, but in other places, in Portugal, you might leave a few coins, or you might not leave anything. So you really need to see what are all the different tipping things you need to do in the different countries you're going to go to. I actually have a video on tipping in different countries, so you have a rough idea, but just know it can be different everywhere, and some places will charge you a sit-down fee. Oh, if you sit down, then it's an extra, €2 per person for the cover, and that might be for the bread they charge you for, or for your forks and knives. That's part of it. So you don't have to tip if there's a service charge already included. So make sure you look at your bill and see if you need a tip or not, and look in your guidebooks or watch our videos that'll go through where you should tip and where you shouldn't tip in Europe. So we've got language and money out of the way, so let's get to some of the other stuff. But we'll go to someplace nice and sunnier for the rest of this. So bye from Vienna, and next we're in. So we moved from cloudy Vienna to more or less sunny Madrid here for some more of our Europe versus America video. We left off with talking about money and tipping and stuff, but if I look at costs in general, US versus Europe, getting over here, your big cost of traveling to Europe or the US is just getting there. That's going to be your big cost. Hotels in Europe tend to be cheaper than hotels in America if you're looking at the same kind of quality level you're going to get. Eating food, that's really hit and miss. You go to Northern Europe, it's more expensive than Southern Europe. Also, Western Europe is more expensive than Eastern Europe. So the cost you're dealing with when you go will really, it's very a regional thing in terms of the cost you're dealing with. So just know that. Also, if you're going to be bringing your electronics, your phone, your laptop or whatever, you want to know how the plugs are. Now in the US, it's two flat things like this. Okay, in mainland Europe, it's usually two circle plugs going like this. And if you're in the UK, it's kind of like a V system. Sometimes in Italy, you'll see a three-pronger system. So there's lots of different ways to get lots of different plugs out there. So I suggest you get a multiple country plug that you can do the UK, the US, and Europe all in the same thing. Because you don't want, you want to make sure you can charge up your phone or charge up your camera battery and stuff like that, so you can get the great pictures of all the fantastic places, whether it's in the US or the UK or in Europe or wherever. Now the next thing is actually kind of important. It's the toilets. Now in the US, you never pay for toilets anywhere. It doesn't matter where it is, and usually the toilets aren't really that nice wherever you go. In Europe, it's hit and miss when you're looking at cleanliness. It's also hit and miss whether you have to pay or not. Traditionally, if you're going to a bathroom at a train station and stuff like that, you will pay. Sometimes when you go in places like in Germany, you might see like an old lady sitting by the toilet that gives a suggestion to give 20, 30 cents, 50 cents, €1 or whatever. Those are suggestions. You don't have to do it, which the Germans will tell you. But if you get the toilet lady looking at you with those eyes, you're like, I gotta give her money, okay? So always have some extra change around just in case you need to pay for the toilets when you're in Europe. Whereas in the US, it's always free. Also in Europe, a lot of the places will not let you use the toilets unless you're a customer, okay? Also in some places, you might find that it's not a seat, it's a hole in the ground in some places, so just be prepared. Not everywhere, but it does happen occasionally, a lot, depending where you go, okay? And the last thing I want to talk about from here in Madrid are the hotels. Now when you go to a hotel in the US, you use these big, huge hotel rooms and you get a double room. There's two big double beds or queen beds, and there's plenty of room to do stuff. In Europe, there's a lot less space. It's a lot more cramped up. So the beds are smaller. So if you get a double bed, or double room, a lot of times it's two single beds pushed together, and so there's a crack in the middle. So if you're looking to come here to make your new kids, it's not as easy as you think it is, okay? So get ready to a little bit of a back discomfort when you do come to Europe. Some of the places do put like a little crack filler in there, but just know that the hotel rooms will be smaller, okay? So if you got 4 kids, you're not gonna do it in one room, okay? You need multiple rooms to do things. So I thought that would help you out. Now let's go someplace else to check out something else in Europe so you get some more ideas. So now we're in Ghent, Belgium. Cute town, great architecture, and of course Belgian beer is fantastic. And so we have a few more differences between the US and Europe for travelers. First off, if we look at restaurants, here in Europe you have much more sit-down restaurants where they serve you, not as many fast food joints. Yes, they do have the McDonald's and Burger Kings, but they have their own versions of those things too, so you should definitely check those out when you are here in Europe. When you go to restaurants, the service in Europe is not like in the US. People pretty much don't live off of tips, and like I said, I talked about tips before. It can be different in every country, but in general in Europe they're not living off tips, so they're not as attentive, let's say. They don't come all the time, and no, you don't get free refills like you do in the US, so be prepared for that, okay? If you want another soda, you're gonna pay for another soda, and your waiter, you might have to flag them down sometimes, so they're not always on top of you, which can be good because you can have some time and not be bothered every 5 minutes. However, if you need to get your bill and stuff like that, that can be a pain. And I find in general the service in Europe, it's fine, but it's not as friendly as you get in the US if you're used to that over-the-top friendliness. If you're not, you'll be fine. Now also, if you're coming to Europe, you might worry, hey, can I drink the water? Hey, if they're European Union, yes, you can drink the water. Now, you'll see most of the people in Europe do not drink their tap water. They buy bottled water and do that because it tastes much better, okay? And I recommend buying bottled water. You should be fine brushing your teeth with the other stuff, and you can drink it, it's no problem. Just, if you're looking for a tasty drink of water, you're probably not gonna get it from the tap. And there are some places that it's not safe to drink tap water. For example, in St. Petersburg in Russia, you cannot even brush your teeth with the tap water, okay? So just ask around. You're gonna drink bottled water because it tastes better, but if it's late night and you're thirsty, you'll be okay getting some from the tap. Another thing, I think this is a good thing for Americans to know is, look, in the US we think that Wi-Fi is a right. Guys, it's not a right here in Europe. It's a privilege to get Wi-Fi when you're in Europe. Yes, the McDonald's and Starbucks here do have Wi-Fi, but your hotels might not. And if they do, it might be slow. So don't be all complaining about, where's the Wi-Fi? They don't have as much Wi-Fi here as they do in the US, so be prepared for that. But having said that, have your devices so you can use Wi-Fi, because when it's there, it's just like at home, okay? Next thing I want to talk about, in Europe, honestly, I feel much more safe in Europe traveling around than I do in the US. Yes, there's some spots in Europe that aren't as friendly or as safe, and there are some unsavory people, but that's like that everywhere in the world. But in general, if you're thinking, I'm worried I'm going to Europe, just know that you're safer coming to Europe than you are going to Chicago or New York. So don't get too freaked out that way. Okay, no one's going to shoot you when you're here. All right. So the safety thing, much safer in Europe than in the U.S. And really one of the bigger differences, especially for tourists, is public transport. Now in the US, yes, we have some buses and some subways in the big cities, not always that good. Some are okay, you know, like the L in Chicago or New York, the subway there. But in general, public transport in the US is pretty worthless. While here in Europe, public transport is fantastic. I'm here in Belgium. I'm going all over the country on a local train, 30 minutes here, 40 minutes there, very often, every half an hour. And you'll see public transport in Europe. You don't have to use a taxi to go everywhere. You can take the bus, the subway, the trams. They do go all over the place, and they are very affordable, okay? Also, if you're going between countries, trains, buses, all these things, lots and lots of options, and they're safe options. You know, sometimes you take the bus in the US, you're kind of worried. Here, you don't really have to worry too much. So I hope that helped you get a rough idea of some of the differences about Europe. And there's between Europe and the US, there's lots of differences out there, but these are just some of the basic ones to go over. We have a lot of these videos based on countries, you know, Germany versus America, Belgium versus America, and things like that, to give you some more ideas if you're going to go to specific places, all right? Now, we also have other fun videos, 5 things you love and hate about going to Belgium, 5 things you love and hate about going to Europe, and also 5 things you love and hate about going to the US. But you want to see all those, check us out our website at woltersworld.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook, and if you have some of the differences between the US and Europe, please leave it in the comment section below, and please keep it clean, because I have a feeling this might be one of those ones where the comments get a little out of hand. So have a great trip to Europe or the US. It's a fantastic place no matter where you go. So I'll say goodbye from Ghent, Belgium. So bye.